A tariff is a tax on imported goods, a fee added by governments to products that cross their borders. The main purpose is to make foreign products more expensive, so that shoppers are nudged toward buying items made at home instead. In early 2025, the Trump administration imposed major tariffs on European cars, citing national security concerns and aiming to boost U.S. auto manufacturing jobs. The idea was simple: make BMWs and Audis pricier, so Americans would be more likely to drive home in a Ford or Chevy. But the global auto industry is deeply interconnected. U.S. companies rely on international supply chains, foreign-made parts, and overseas markets to stay competitive. Tariffs are blunt tools. Their effects ripple far beyond their intended targets, impacting not just foreign automakers but also American consumers, workers, and companies everywhere. This move marks a sharp break from decades of U.S.-led free trade, replacing cooperation and open markets with a new era of economic nationalism, even among close allies. For American consumers, the result is simple and immediate: higher prices and fewer choices at the dealership, as imported cars become less affordable and some models even disappear from showrooms. For the EU, it's a stinging blow from a longtime partner, signaling that economic interests now trump old alliances and shared history. The EU was never going to take this lying down. European leaders quickly began planning their response. Retaliation was inevitable, setting the stage for a full-blown trade war that would affect industries far beyond automobiles. What started as a policy to protect American jobs quickly spiraled into a global economic conflict, with stock markets reacting and factories slowing production. The consequences would soon reach far beyond the car lot, touching economies, workers, and families around the world. The tariffs sent shockwaves through the US-EU alliance, straining a partnership that's anchored global stability for decades. European leaders saw the move as a betrayal, questioning America's reliability as an ally. The national security justification was met with disbelief. German and French officials argued their cars were never a threat. The rift deepened, with Europe forced to respond or risk looking weak at home. The EU quickly prepared retaliatory tariffs, targeting iconic American goods and key political constituencies. This tit-for-tat cycle hurt both sides, disrupting supply chains and injecting instability into the global economy. The friendly rivalry between allies devolved into a bitter feud. Producers and consumers on both sides paid the price. The transatlantic relationship, once defined by trust, now faced a new era of suspicion and divergence. The tariff's unintended victim? Tesla. Once a symbol of American innovation, Tesla's EU sales plummeted 35% after Europe hit back with its own tariffs on US-made electric vehicles. Suddenly, a Model Y in Berlin cost far more than a local Volkswagen or Renault. European buyers, already wary of Elon Musk's politics and labor practices, turned to homegrown brands. Tesla's stock tumbled, exposing its reliance on US factories for European sales. Its Berlin gigafactory couldn't keep up and imports became a liability. The tariffs turned a logistical challenge into a financial crisis. Instead of protecting American industry, the policy wounded one of its brightest stars. The lesson in a global economy: protectionism can backfire fast. Europe's response was swift and united, blending economic retaliation with a clear message of principle. The continent's leaders wasted no time in coming together, determined to show that European unity could not be undermined by outside pressure. Denmark, known for its pioneering green policies and commitment to sustainability, led the charge, framing the dispute as a defense of the rules-based order. Danish officials emphasized that this was not just about trade, but about upholding the values that underpin European society. Across the EU, the tariffs galvanized a sense of solidarity against what was widely seen as American bullying. Citizens and politicians alike rallied together, determined to protect European interests and values. Retaliatory tariffs targeted sensitive US sectors, but Europe's answer went further, signaling a willingness to endure short-term pain for long-term sovereignty. Leaders doubled down on a different economic model, one balancing free markets with social and environmental protections. They saw this moment as an opportunity to reinforce Europe's unique approach to growth and innovation. The Tesla controversy became a symbol of the clash between American and European values, highlighting the growing divide over technology, labor, and environmental standards. The trade war accelerated Europe's Green Deal, with new incentives for EU-made electric vehicles and ambitious targets for clean energy adoption. The goal was clear: punish US trade policy while nurturing Europe's own green tech industry. fostering innovation and creating new jobs for the future. For the first time in decades, Europe asserted its independence, determined to defend its interests, even against its oldest ally. This was a turning point in the continent's modern history. Denmark's stance signaled a broader shift. Europe would no longer play junior partner but instead act as a confident, equal force on the world stage. The continent was ready to chart its own course, embracing a future defined by resilience, innovation, and unity. With the US turning inward, Europe pivoted east, toward China. This wasn't about shared values, but necessity. Europe needed new markets and supply chains. Chinese firms, leaders in battery tech and rare earths, became essential partners for European automakers. Collaborations with companies like KTL and BYD helped secure supplies and lower costs, insulating Europe from US trade volatility. The pivot extended to tech, with Europe working with Chinese giants in 5G, AI, and renewables, despite security concerns. The new buzzword in Brussels, strategic autonomy. Europe aimed to build its own technological base, balancing ties with both Washington and Beijing. The relationship with China was cautious, not a full embrace. Europe sought to de-risk, not decouple. But the more the US pushed allies away, the more Europe looked east, reshaping global alignments. The world's economic center of gravity was shifting. The auto trade war is just one sign of a deeper shift in the global order. For decades, the US built a system of free trade and alliances that fueled prosperity. Now, American protectionism is unraveling that system, forcing allies to rethink their roles. The world is moving from US dominance to a multipolar landscape, with the EU and China rising as independent powers. Europe's coordinated response to tariffs shows its ambition to act on its own terms. Global supply chains are being reimagined for resilience and security, not just cost. Friendshoring is replacing hyper-globalization, making goods pricier and supply lines more political. The rules of the 21st century economy are up for grabs, open markets or fragmented blocks. US tariffs have nudged the world toward division and nationalism. This threatens growth and makes global cooperation on climate, pandemics, and more much harder. The fight over cars is really a fight over the future of globalization. We're witnessing the dawn of a post-American marketplace, a world where the old rules are being rewritten before our eyes. The Trump tariffs on European cars mark a dramatic turning point, prioritizing narrow national interests over the broader goal of global stability and cooperation. The fallout is clear. American influence is waning, and US companies like Tesla are paying the price, facing new barriers and shrinking opportunities abroad. Europe is responding by building a more self-reliant economic fortress, becoming less welcoming to American firms and more determined to chart its own course. Competing blocs are emerging, a protectionist US, an assertive EU, and a pragmatic China, each pursuing its own interests and vision for the future. This fragmentation raises costs, stifles innovation, and makes global problems harder to solve, as collaboration gives way to rivalry and suspicion. The dream of seamless global trade is fading, replaced by economic walls, mistrust, and a sense of uncertainty about what comes next. The foundation of the old order, trust in America's reliability, is eroding, leaving allies and rivals alike questioning their next moves. Europe has learned that alliances offer no guarantee against economic hostility and is adapting to a world where self-interest often trumps partnership. The world is hedging its bets, preparing for a future where America is just one power among many, rather than the undisputed leader. The US no longer sets the rules alone. Global leadership is now a shared and contested space. The consequences of this new era will shape the world for generations, influencing how nations cooperate, compete, and imagine their futures.